anybody familiar with HG Tudor? He is here by popular demand, by viewer request. Good morning, HG.
Hello, Sonia.
How good to hear you. I said, let's make this on time because the one thing you don't do is keep a narc waiting.
Well, that's right. That's deemed a threat to control and will result in an application of ignited fury. So I'm pleased that you've been paying attention to what I've been telling everybody.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm a follower. HG Tudor, everybody, here by popular demand. And HG, what this man does not know about narcissism, frankly, is not worth knowing. He is the creator of the fabulous Knowing the Narcissist series, which I will put a link in the description to after the live stream rather. HG, you are a diagnosed narcissist yourself, aren't you?
That's right, yes.
And for those who are unfamiliar, because I haven't actually talked to you on this stream, so welcome to this stream. But so for those who may not have seen you on this stream, just explain to people why you don't reveal your identity either now or in your series.
Two reasons, really. The first is uh, being what I am is stigmatic and would actually cause problems for me what I do privately. So, because I have this need for control, I don't want to reveal information which would then impact upon what I do professionally. So I want to keep those worlds separate. Furthermore, I want to create this legacy about this information, and I want people to concentrate on the information. So not necessarily a face that's
Right.
doing a talking head, etc. And the fact is, by utilizing a pseudonym and not showing myself, I can be honest about the way that me and my kind behave, so people get the information that they need. So it serves my purposes in enabling me to do what I need to do professionally and separately, and it surfaces the needs of the creation of my legacy in enabling people to receive the information they need to receive. So it's a win-win.
I get you. So the leaving the legacy is in itself, that whole idea, very narcissistic, I feel, but it's also altruistic as well. This idea that you want to, which you've already done, create this body of information that people can draw on to better help them understand and navigate their way amongst other narcissists. So all narcissists are not just naturally horrible people, right?
If you were to ask most narcissists, are you a horrible person? Most of them would be horrified at the suggestion because, first of all, they wouldn't recognize that they're narcissists
Right,
because
right.
most narcissists don't realize that they are them. And even where there are narcissists that know what they are, it doesn't follow that they will always behave in an unpleasant way, because if we're red of tooth and claw all of the time, we'd never get any interaction. We'd never get any victims because people would run away from us. And remember, everything that the narcissist does is self-serving. So it in pursuit of what I call the prime aims, which means controlling people, drawing fuel from them. That's the lifeblood of the narcissist, people's reactions, character traits, and residual benefits. So when I create my legacy, you talk about it being altruistic. Well, it isn't, because it's self-serving.
Right.
I'm doing it because it allows me to control people. And it allows me to nullify the threat to control posed by death, because I know I will live on through my work once this meat suit expires. So although people benefit from my work, it's self-serving with everything the narcissist does. So you will get a narcissist that will create a brilliant album, fantastic songs that people enjoy listening to. But he didn't create it solely for the enjoyment of those people. The narcissist created because, quite simply, creation of fantastic music allows that narcissist to control people through that music, provokes a reaction, which is the lifeblood of the narcissist, creates a residual benefit of making lots of money, manages a facade. The narcissist builds a tower block, which then houses businesses. Why did they do that? Same reason, the prime aims. So there's lots of narcissists that do things that might be said to be good,
Right.
but it's still self-serving.
Right. So people who like virtue signal, right?
Mm.
Are they kind of a narcissistic persuasion?
A lot of narcissists virtue signal. Just because someone virtue signals, you can't say that person is a
Right.
narcissist, because
Right.
you can't make that analysis just off one thing.
Right.
You need to look at a range of behavior
Yeah,
over a
it's
period of time.
complex, isn't it? It's
It is,
complex.
but
Do you think
what you
so?
can say is that someone who engages in habitual virtue signaling, and you've seen it again and again and again, there's a very good chance that you're dealing with a type of narcissist there.
Do you think we throw the word narcissist around too much these days?
Yes, although the understanding of it is still nowhere near as widespread as it ought to be.
No.
What tends to happen is that because of the proliferation of social media, is narcissism and narcissist has become a little bit of a bandwagon. And what I've seen a lot of is that there are individuals that claim to understand something about narcissism, even claim to be narcissists themselves, and they're quite clearly not. They're just attention seekers. Because people, normal people, like attention. They like praise. And they portray themselves as a narcissist and they get it completely wrong. And what often happens is you get many people who turn around and say to somebody, oh, you're a narcissist, because that person has said something they don't like.
Right,
and
right.
that's not a narcissist. So it does get bandied around far too often by people who don't actually understand what it means, both in terms of labeling people as narcissists when actually they're not. They've just done something they don't like, or people talking about it when they don't actually understand what it is and portraying to be an expert about it.
And for those who aren't aware, fuel is the thing that narcissists seek, isn't it?
It is. Fuel's hugely important, as I mentioned earlier, Sonia. It's the lifeblood. So you talking to me now and asking me questions is giving me fuel, because you're giving me emotional attention. If you made me a cup of tea and said, there you go, HG, there's a cup of Builders, that's giving me fuel. If you said, HG, I love you, that's giving me fuel. If you said, HG, I hate you, you're an asshole, that's giving me fuel.
Oh, right. So fuel, it doesn't matter whether it's negative or positive, right?
Well, it does to an extent. I often explain with the narcissists, love me, hate me, but never ignore me. Okay. So many narcissists prefer positive fuel, which is the adoration, which is the praise, which is the applause, which is the love. Narcissists also like negative fuel, so making you cry. That demonstrates power. Crying is negative fuel. But turning around and saying to a narcissist, you know what? You're the absolute scum of the earth. I can't stand you. Your breath stinks. Your fashion sense is from a 1970s porn movie. I hate you. That's what's called challenge negative fuel. You're giving negative fuel. That bit's all right. But because you're criticizing the narcissist doesn't like that. Now, you get some narcissists, what I call highly provocative narcissists, and they absolutely love engaging in the provocative behaviors. So take, for example, Premiership football, who's a narcissist. He scores a goal late on and he runs up to the home fans. He's playing for the away side, and he gives it the big un towards them, cupping the ear, gesticulating at them, and they're giving him the old wanker sign, and they're flicking the V's at him, etc. He's drinking up that negative fuel because it means he matters, and he's absolutely gorging on it.
Wait,
other narcissists would hate that. Yeah,
that's key. So the point is, it means they matter, right? Yes. The attention means they matter. That's interesting. HG, I've got so many questions. Yes, it is HG Tudor, Mary. Yes, it is. Marie said you're describing her mother. Okay, HG, I've got so many questions. I'm not even sure we're going to be able to get through them all, but let's start, okay? Catherine said, hello, HG, watch all your videos. Can you inherit the trait of being a narc, or is it something you earn yourself when you are born?
Hello, Catherine. Yes, you inherit it very quickly. To create a narcissist, you need two things: a genetic predisposition, which will come from one or more of your parents or further back in your lineage, and you have to be exposed to a lack of control environment. So you don't just become a narcissist like that. You have to have the genetic predisposition, i.e. the capacity to become one, and then you have to be exposed to the lack of control environment, and that's what creates a narcissist.
Beyond Belief in the comments says, can you separate grandiose from vulnerable narcissism?
You can. I have my own classification system. I don't like talking about grandiose narcissists, covert narcissists, vulnerable narcissists. The reason being is it's too wide. You have vulnerable behaviors, you have grandiose behaviors, covert behaviors. For example, under my classification, a covert narcissist would cover about 7 different types of narcissists. So I prefer to talk about the behaviors. So you do have differences in them. A grandiose behavior, of course, is your typically
Russell Brand? Would Russell Brand be called a grandiose?
Yes, he would, because he grandstands. The individual who's, I've got a car like that, but mine's better, likes to sort of flex his muscles, shows off about what he does, talks about everything that he achieves. The vulnerable behaviors are more linked to, oh no, I've messed up again, and oh, nobody likes me, and oh, I've got this sore I've got a fractured eyelash. I'm not going to be able to come into work. Those types of things. So I have videos about the vulnerable narcissist, explaining why I don't like the term, but also what all of that means. Ditto grandiose, ditto covert, and
Got
so
you.
forth. Yeah.
Got you. Crone has a question in the chat. How do narcs deal with it when they know you have sussed them out? Love that question.
That is a threat to the narcissist's control.
Oof.
And remember, the narcissist doesn't necessarily know what they are. All they will do is pick up on that you're not under control in the way that you were. So if you start saying to an unaware narcissist, you're a narcissist because this, and this, they won't go, oh, damn, they know what I am. How it translates for that narcissist is they're not being how I want them to be. They're not behaving themselves. They're being awkward. They're being difficult. They're being nasty, calling me names. I'm not a narcissist. But when that happens, the narcissism, which is like a background app, recognizes you're not under control. So either the narcissist will try and put you under more control with different manipulations, or may decide to basically cut losses and disengage from you by basically saying, you're like an insurgency in this country that we've invaded. It's not worth us keeping you under control. We'll jettison you and we'll go and find somebody else.
Because they're like parasites, really. They kind of like create this kind of parasitical mind state. I've talked to you about this before. I had previously been involved in narcissists throughout my life, and I know the impact they have. But I also know the impact of just pulling everything back from them, taking all energy from them. I've literally like watched people deflate in front of me when I've done that. It's a powerful tool, isn't it?
It is a parasitic lifestyle, because the narcissist can only exist in relation to that person so long as that person is giving them the control, giving them the fuel, giving them the characteristics and residual benefits. If you remove yourself from the narcissist, so you're not giving anything, then the narcissist, as you say, deflates and is forced to go elsewhere. So the narcissist can't feed off you any longer.
Anana Mouse in the chat says HG is also a psychopath. How does that affect his narcissism?
Well, the two sit together. I'm more psychopath than narcissist. And what that means is that as a psychopath, I don't experience fear or anxiety. I'm hyper-focused. My narcissism is such that I do need fuel, but not to the same extent that a pure narcissist would. So I can spend longer periods of time away from people. One of my psychologists summed it up by saying, basically, my narcissism gets in the way of my psychopathy, because there is the necessity of needing a reaction from people. And so they sit side by side, and all psychopaths have a degree of narcissistic behavior about them. It varies on the scale. But all narcissists don't have what it's strictly speaking antisocial personality disorder, because there isn't actually a diagnosis of psychopathy. That's just a sort of term. It's a lot easier saying psychopath than going antisocial personality disorder repeatedly. But that's how they sit together. So there is a grandiosity associated with the psychopathy. The fact is, through my psychopathy, I need to control people. People are just a game. They're there to be exploited by me. They're there to amuse me because I get bored easily. And so my narcissism feeds into those aspects.
I mean, how do you have a relationship when you're like that?
Very easily. I'm very charming and good looking and witty and urbane and intelligent. So it's very easy to attract people to me. Anybody who's followed my work knows I've got an excellent sense of humor and, I've got a quick wit, etc. So the relationship is there for me to use. It's there for me to exploit. It's there for me to keep me from being bored. It's there for me to extract fuel from. It's there for me to control the individual. So the relationship between a narcissist and their victim is invariably a haphazard one, but some are more stable than others, because you get more evolved narcissists that are better at controlling people, perhaps more with the carrot than the stick. But ultimately, it's never a happy relationship for the victim. It's because it's all about serving our purposes. So it's very easy for me to get people. I'm very good at drawing people in and making them mine and owning them. But I get bored of them, and then I play with them. And then usually I'm the one that gets rid of them.
Cast them aside when you've taken what you need from them, presumably when you found a better source of fuel as well. Do you have to have a source of fuel in place?
Not always, because I have an extensive fuel matrix. So when you're talking about a partner who's an intimate partner primary source, so a girlfriend or a wife, many narcissists need to segue from one to the other seamlessly. because they don't have as large fuel matrices.
Right.
But somebody such as myself and others like me, I have a lot of friends, I have a lot of contacts, I know a lot of people. So there's lots of people that I can draw on. So I don't always need to be relying on an intimate partner primary source. In broad brush terms, what I call a lesser narcissist will rely on their IPPS 80-90% of the time, mid-range, around about 60-70%, greater or ultra, my classification, 40-50%. So we have other people that we can access. Other narcissists, their options are limited, so they're much more reliant on that intimate partner primary source.
Right. Yes, of course, because you get all the feedback as well from the work that you do as well. So that must be a huge source of fuel for you, because I read some of the comments. Right. I suspect you might already have answered this really to a certain degree. And that is, Kennedy says, do most narcs even realize they are narcs? Some must do, right? I mean, you realize it.
Yeah, most don't. The vast majority of narcissists don't know what they are. In a way, the narcissism is deemed it can't let the host, if you look at it that way, know what they are, because if they did, it wouldn't function properly. They'd mess it up because they'd hesitate. But there are a number of narcissists, it's much, much smaller in number, that do know what they are. But what they don't do, and this is why I use the pseudonym, is the last thing that you do as an aware narcissist is go up to somebody and go, hello, I'm an aware narcissist. Because that's what an idiot would do.
Right.
And that's why many of the narcissists that claim to be one are often not ones, because it's not something that you'd actually do, because you're transferring power. If I go into a bar and I see a pretty lady and I go, oh, hello, my name's John Smith. I'm a narcissistic psychopath. She'd shriek and throw a dirty martini on my face. Yeah. I've just lost control of her.
Yeah, so it's not a great chat-up line.
No, it isn't.
It's not the best. Kennedy also wants to know whether narcissism is more prevalent in males or females, one gender or another.
It's about 50-50.
Is it?
Although there are those that will say it's more prevalent amongst males, there are different types of narcissists which are more prevalent amongst males than females. So, for instance, what I categorize as upper lesser type A and upper lesser type B. So, roughly speaking, upper lesser type A is what I call the affable arsehole. So he's like a dog with six dicks.
I know exactly the type you're talking about.
Exactly. He's completely superficial, completely unreliable. The upper lesser type B, he's bombastic, he's brash, he boasts. Trump is an example of an upper lesser type B. Andrew Tate is an example of upper lesser type B. Those narcissists, A and B, you find more men amongst those. There are women, but you find more men. What I call middle range A and middle range B, more passive aggressive, think they're nice people, but actually not. They're interfering, they're bitchy, they're gossipy, they cause problems within families, etc. You get more females amongst those.
Healing the silence is the good one. Well, I'm not sure if you're even going to want to answer, actually. What destroys the narcissist in the end? If one has gone no contact, do they end up destroying themselves?
Well, it depends what you mean by the concept of destroy. Narcissists invariably cause a problem for themselves. And I often talk about give the narcissist a rope and they'll hang themselves. Lesser and mid-range narcissists, because of collateral consequences, what they'll do is their narcissism is focused on what's happening in the moment. So take, for example, a middle lesser narcissist, he's late for work. His manager says, you're late, you're on disciplinary. So that threatens his control in that moment. What does he do? He punches his manager, puts his manager on his backside. He's gained control in that instant. What happens in the next moment? He's sacked. In the same way, the narcissist cheats and he gets found out, so his relationship ends. Or he spends a load of money impressing somebody and then he can't pay his bills. So there are a lot of narcissists that have haphazard lives because of the necessity of the focus of control. Now, no contact is what a narcissist hates, but invariably what the narcissist will do is leave you alone, but they'll go and find somebody else. And with there being 8 billion people on the planet, plenty of victims for the narcissist.
Easy enough to do, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Joanne wants to know whether you yourself have ever lost your composure.
Occasionally it has happened. Generally I don't, because I have a very high threshold on what's called my ignited fury. And because of my psychopathy, that keeps me calm, so that I approach things in a very sort of focused way. But there have been instances where there's been a significant threat to my control, and I've determined that the most appropriate thing to do was allow my heated, ignited fury to be unleashed. I don't often shout. but there have been occasions when I've done so. So it's been a considered lack of composure, if you will. I deliberately allowed that to show in order to browbeat that person into submission. But ordinarily, I find it more effective to keep my temper, and basically a look or a sentence is far more chilling and effective than shouting at somebody. But sometimes the raising of the voice and letting that composure blow is effective.
I have literally so many questions. We literally could do a Q&A with you for about 4 hours, but it's not going to be possible, people. But I'm getting through as many as possible here. And I think this is more a comment than a question. And that is from Beyond Belief, is narcissists can't handle ridicule. I think there's truth there, isn't there?
It is, because ridicule is challenge fuel. So when you're ridiculing the narcissist, you're giving fuel. That bit's okay, but the narcissist must be taken seriously. The narcissist is a very important person, remember, in their own world. And if you ridicule them, the narcissist can't stand it.
Well, maybe that's why one of the viewers asked me to basically carry out an experiment with you and just say, look, you're boring me now, and get a response from you. And that would exactly be that sort of thing, wouldn't it?
Well, I know that I'm not boring, so basically, I would just dismiss that comment as being unnecessarily antagonistic, and I know that you're more polite to me than that, Sonia.
Oh, I'm way more polite than that. More questions, more questions. There was a really good one here as well, Jacqueline. This is really important, actually, because you said something a few minutes ago, and I thought, that's interesting. How do you distinguish? And Jacqueline's put it into words. How do you distinguish the confident or fearless person with the narcissist? Because that's true, isn't it? People who are confident and fearless, because you were talking about how you don't feel any fear. Well, a lot of the time I do things and I tend not to feel a lot of fear, but I'm hoping I'm not a narcissist. So how do you distinguish?
Well, it's important to make this distinction, because I think there's been a slight misunderstanding there. Narcissists do experience fear. It's right. The psychopath right. processes fear differently. So if we're just sticking to the narcissists do experience fear. So if you point a gun at a narcissist, the narcissist will be frightened of that. And in the circumstances, their narcissism will harness that fear to drive them to try and nullify that threat to control by pleading for their life or running away. Now, some narcissists come across as excessively confident, and on the face of it, don't look like they experience fear. Some narcissists play up to being fearful. The more vulnerable types, the one that use more covert behaviors, they will use fear as an advantage. Oh, don't hit me, I'm only little. So that you feel sorry for them. Other narcissists, the more grandiose and bellicose types, will want to mask that fear. Oh, I'm not scared of anything. When in actual fact, they will be. But there is the presentation, the veneer that they don't experience fear. But narcissists do. How do you distinguish between those that are people who exhibit bravery? Well, you've got to look, as I say, at a range of behaviors to look for those narcissistic indicators. Right. Again, you can't just say, oh, right, because that person's fearless, that might mean they're a narcissist. You can't make that determination.
HG, why are there so many apparent narcissists in public life, from politics to celebrities? Are there more now than ever before? Alice wants to know.
There will be more than before because the population of the planet is increasing. There are more than before because we have more and more exposure in terms of, think about how many TV channels there are in the United Kingdom compared to back when like Channel 4 started in 1982. So there was only 4 back then. Think about social media. So you are exposed to people's behavior far more than you once were, which means that you see this type of behavior more often. But why are they in public life? Well, you're absolutely right, because that really does attract narcissists. Let's take politics, for example. As I mentioned earlier on, what is it the narcissist seeks? The prime aims: control, fuel, character traits, residual benefits. That's what the narcissist is driven towards. So if you get political power, you can control a populace, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people. Think about all the fuel, all those people chanting your name at a rally, or booing you, still fuel. Think about all the people that you meet that you can acquire all those character traits from. Think about the residual benefits, the power, the money, the networks. So politics is hugely attractive to narcissists because it caters to the prime aims on a massive scale, but also because it attracts so many of our kind, invariably, not always, but invariably, in order to survive in that environment, who's best placed to survive? The narcissists. So it becomes a viper's nest. It attracts us. And if you want to sort of survive there without being chewed up and spat out, you almost have to be one of us in order to get through it.
Wow. I mean, that's quite phenomenal, really. Cavan wants to know if you've been a narcissist from birth. So, Cavan, you're suggesting, was he born a narcissist? I think narcissists are created, aren't they, HG?
That's right, Sonia. So I wasn't born a narcissist. That aspect of me was created. Yeah.
Hard. It's quite difficult, really. Are you happy? Can narcissists be happy?
No, I don't do
Oh,
happiness. I experience power. Narcissists aren't content. I always have a nagging itch. It doesn't trouble me. This is the way that I'm built. Do you think a shark's bothered about swimming in the sea all the time? No, that's what he's designed to do. So I'm always designed to be playing with people, to seek the fuel. I'm very good at it. Other narcissists are less so. And they will think that they're happy because the narcissism makes them think that they're happy in order to fit in. But we don't actually do happiness. We don't do sadness either. I don't feel
oh,
sad.
oh,
So
right. Okay, that's interesting. So neither of those kind of emotions mess with you at all. And Nanamouse says HG has helped many people navigate toxic relationships with narcissists. And that's true. I've taken a lot of information from you, which is why I like bringing you back on, because
mm.
I, despite what you say about yourself, how you're not there to help me, not really, and it's not about leaving a legacy, but you are still helping people,
Oh,
clearly.
absolutely. As I make it very clear, I'm very honest about what I am so that people understand what they're dealing with and also know that you're getting the right information. And I'm very clear. I'm doing this for myself, but also it benefits all of you as well. Because if you get the right information from me, which you do, you will go and tell other people about me. So that extends my legacy. You'll come back and use more of my services. You will tell me nice things, which gives me a bit of fuel. I don't need it from my audience because I'm well fueled in my private life, but I'm not going to turn it down. So it is a win-win, so that I do all of these things because they serve my purposes, but also it aids other people. There will be people who know me who will turn around and say, let's say I'm called John Smith, I'm not, and they'll go, oh, you don't want to bother with him, he's a right nasty so-and-so. But in terms of my audience on YouTube and my blog and the people I consult with, they will all have a good account of me because they've been helped and they've received brilliant information,
Exactly.
which has brought them insight. Yeah,
Exactly, but that's sort of a byproduct as opposed to your main
correct,
intention. Got you.
correct.
Crazy. Oh, this is interesting. What happens when you meet another narcissist? Do you recognize each other?
I recognize other narcissists within a number of minutes of meeting them. They might not recognize me if they're an unaware narcissist. So unaware narcissists can spot other narcissists because they might have an understanding about narcissism. But what they tend to often do, unaware narcissists tend to label genuine victims as narcissists because of their skewed perspective. An aware narcissist would recognize me. They would know that I was one. And when that happens, it is like two sort of sharks passing one another. It isn't likely that we'll lock horns, but there's almost rather a sort of weird kind of respect that goes on. Unaware narcissists are fair game to me, and I love playing with them because I've got no loyalty to them. So I regularly have unaware narcissists that come along to my blog, that email me, and they don't realize what they are, but it's quite clear to me within a
Oh,
short exchange what they are.
interesting.
And I like to toy with those individuals. I don't toy actually with the people that come to me honestly seeking help
Right.
because they're not seeking to manipulate me. So they don't threaten my need for
Got
control.
you.
But
Right.
a narcissist comes along and they are instinctively, although they don't recognize it, trying to manipulate me, and that must be stopped.
Be asked if a narcissist knows what they are, would they ever seek therapy in order to change, improve? Can you stop being a narcissist?
No, it's like me asking you to stop breathing.
Oh,
It's part
right.
of what I am. A narcissist will attend therapy. Most narcissists that go are unaware, and they do so because they think they're the victim of a problem, or they might think that they've got an issue and they simply want to go to either be told that they haven't got an issue or to get some validation that they're special and they should be treated accordingly. But if an aware narcissist goes to therapy, it just makes that aware narcissist more dangerous.
Cavan has followed up his question by saying, do you know what it was that created how you are?
Yes, So my mother's a narcissist, so the genetic predisposition came from her, and I was subjected to two lack of control environments as a child. The first was that basically, no matter what I did, it wasn't good enough. It's what I call grade B syndrome. So I scored 2 goals. Why didn't you score 3? I got 80% in an examination. Why didn't I get 85%? So I climbed the hill. There was always another hill behind it. And I was physically and sexually abused. So those aspects create a lack of control environment. And my narcissism was a product of that.
See, that just makes me feel compassion towards you, as opposed
Well,
to
that's an understandable response. But I always explain to people that you ought not to, because it's a dangerous road to go down. And certainly for me,
right.
whilst I acknowledge your sentiment, I don't need it.
And there's a couple of questions here which kind of play into each other. John from Coventry is very concerned about Harry and his missus. And HG, Dawn has written in saying, I watch your videos and have learned a great deal from them. In your opinion, is Meghan Markle one of the most famous narcissists?
Thank you for watching my videos. She is. I've done a lot of videos about her because so many people are interested in her. And she is one of the most famous narcissists as a consequence of the exposure that she's got, which was purely by virtue of the fact that she happened to ensnare a dim-witted ginger prince. She had no other talent other than that.
This is interesting. So the thing is obviously lots of people seem to dislike her. And I always feel that feels a bit imbalanced, really. Right? Like it feels such an extreme reaction towards her. And do you actually feel, obviously this is only our opinion, we haven't diagnosed any of these people, but do you actually feel that Harry is on the receiving end of narcissism and needs to be rescued?
I regularly explain that he is the victim of a narcissist. Harry has engaged in unpleasant behaviours himself because he has strong narcissistic traits. And the way that he's behaved is not uncommon for the victim of a narcissist, because what happens is he's entered the awful shared fantasy with her. He has drunk the Kool-Aid. The poison has been dripped in his ear. So that has influenced his own behaviours. So there's resentment with Harry. There's defiance with Harry. There's argumentativeness with Harry. And she has been able to exploit that so that it has become exacerbated. But he's still the victim of a narcissist. There are those people that think he's a narcissist. He's not. There are those people who think, well, he's too much of a traitor, so I don't care about him. Well, you're allowed to form that view. And there are other people who still feel a bit sorry for him because he's been ensnared by a narcissist, doesn't realize that, and he does need rescuing. So people do have varying views, but the analysis is she's a narcissist, he's a victim of the narcissist.
Interesting. I'm going to let you go in a minute, but I just got to read a few more comments for you. And this is interesting. A number of people are saying thank you for disclosing about your past, because it gives people an opportunity to have more of an insight, because narcissists by their very nature, and especially one who's like so proudly so, I do that in air quotes, obviously, naturally rile people. We naturally feel riled by you to a certain degree, right? So it's really, I thank you for being that open. But this is an interesting question. Vicky says, what do you mean by lack of control environment?
Okay, so there's lots of different lack of control environments. So being physically abused, I couldn't stop the physical abuse. I was a small boy. I wasn't physically strong enough. So I had no control over my environment when that was taking place. If a child is emotionally neglected, they've got no control over the loss of the emotional support. They can't do anything about it. If a child is forced to rummage through the refuse for something to eat and they're sat in a soiled nappy, they don't know how to change it. They don't have control over their environment. So there's lots of different types: physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, the grade B environment, which I mentioned, a gilded environment as well. A child that's brought up with everything on a silver platter, they don't actually have the ability to make choices for themselves. They're given everything. So again, that's a different lack of control environment again. So that's what I mean, is it's an environment where the child isn't able to make. No child has complete control over their environment because they're a child. But for instance, a child can decide if it wants to play with some toys. A child is able to play with the other children. A child is able to feel safe. Those are supportive environments. A lack of control environment is where a child knows, for instance, certain behavior will result in them being shouted at. But for some children, It's a little bit like being a prisoner in a concentration camp. You don't know what the rules are. You're walking along, crack, you get hit, and you don't even know what you've done. So that, again, is a lack of control environment.
Interesting. People in the comments are wondering whether you've repeated the cycle, whether you're married and with children, and whether you've repeated the cycle of your mother.
I don't have any children. I'm not interested.
Really? Not interested in having children at all? Would it take
Mm-hmm.
away from you? Would it deplete from you?
Yeah, crotch goblins just get in the way. I travel a lot. I'm a very busy man. I just don't have any interest, which many people say is a blessing, and I understand them saying that.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I always find it fascinating because I think it's so important for us to understand what's going on. Because when you find yourself perhaps for the first time on the receiving end of a narcissist, it can be absolutely mind blowing because their actions often don't add up, right? They do things to provoke and goad you into action, right? So they don't often make sense. So I think it's really important to get that insight. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, HG. I do always appreciate it. Everybody, HG Tudor, I'm going to put a link to his work in the description and you can find out more. But HG and the Crotch Goblins, says Anonymous. Yeah, we love that. Thank you, says Frank.
You're welcome.
Vicky Peters says thanks. Everybody's saying thank you, actually. Saying thank you to a narcissist. They're giving you more fuel, HG.
They are.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you. You're helping us, whether you like it or not, mate. Take good care of yourself. God
Thank you,
bless
Sonia.
you. Thank you. Take care. Brilliant. I always enjoy a conversation with him. I want to get inside that mind. What is going on there? Yeah, Jacqueline, very interesting, right?